Sick of getting blisters? Stop slipping and just be comfortable with Pure Grip Socks Pro. Great fit, great comfort, lots of grip, and an even better price. Available now at puregripsocks.com.
When it comes to budget-friendly laceless football boots, my advice up until this point is that if you only have about $100 to spend, short of finding an incredible deal on a top-end model at an outlet store or something, it's probably not a good idea. That is until now, at least sort of. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to the brand new Adidas F50 League Laceless, the second tier budget-friendly option in the new F50 lineup, of which you have 3 different models to choose from. The regular low-cut variation with a lacing system, retailing for $90, a women's mid-cut variation, also retailing for $90, and of course this laceless variation, which does come at a $10 premium, retailing for $100. Which of course is far less expensive than the $260 laceless F50 Elite, but still not necessarily cheap in the grand scheme of budget-friendly football boots. With that in mind, it is laceless, which does have its appeal to a certain demographic, and I must say, as far as laceless takedown models go, this is easily the best one out there. You know what? I'll even go one step further and say it's the best one ever. But that's not to say that you should just automatically go out and buy them, because there definitely are some pros and cons that you should know about if these are of interest to you and if you're into the whole laceless thing. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around. We're going to go over absolutely all the details, including how they fit and feel on feet. And if you are interested in a pair for yourself, you can pick them up below their normal retail price by way of some exclusive SR4U coupon codes via the first link down below. And as always, if you enjoy the unsugar-coated, brutally honest content on the channel, don't forget to drop a like on the video and make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on my reviews of all the latest football boots of 2024. Other than a few random laceless uppers that you could buy for the F50 Tune-It way back in the day, the F50 series was never known for laceless upper constructions, but given that this new F50 effectively takes over for the Adidas X line, the previous generation being the Crazy Fast, and of course the Crazy Fast featuring the 0.3 option with a laceless upper, this basically carries on where those left off. However, it does so in a way that is much more like the new top-end variations of the F50 with a laceless system that far exceeds from a quality standpoint anything that we've ever seen at this $100 to $90 laceless price point. Something that I've always criticized on these laceless takedown models is that in order for a laceless football boot design to fit the part and perform the part, it kind of requires premium materials, and something that we really haven't seen very often from Adidas at these lower takedown model price points is just that, high quality materials. This year with the F50, pretty much across the board, that is totally different, where the fiber skin upper, which is basically a take on the fiber touch you'll find on the top end model, and then the Sprint grid texturing, which is different from Sprint web in that it's just the ridge texturing of the material itself, not really doing much in the way of additional grip, but from a feel and pliability perspective, it shares a lot in common with that top end model and feels well above average in terms of other budget-friendly speed boots when it comes to the comfort level that it provides, the shaping of the football boot, and certainly the barefoot feel that it has on offer. It's a really impressive upper for this price point if you're looking for something that is thin and raw. The laceless system, however, is where I think they've actually done the most impressive thing, in that, as you can see, it is a knitted material. Is it quite the prime knit you'll find on the top end model? Absolutely not. But unlike the top end model, and it's very difficult for me to show you guys, there's actually an internal reinforcement fused to the underside of this laceless system, preventing it from overstretching. If I kind of push on it a little bit, you'll be able to see some of that structure popping out, and you'll find that it does legitimately have a decent amount of tension across the top of the foot in combination with really good shaping, and finally, for the first time in a long time, a not overly shallow fitting heel. The end result for $100 is a pair of laceless football boots that actually fit really well and also offer pretty decent lockdown given that you get the sizing right. Of course, all the trade-offs that would typically come along with laceless football boots still exist here in that you don't have any adjustability, and if your foot shape just isn't right for this specific football boot, the overall feel and performance characteristics, the stability even, will definitely be a little bit off. So for the vast majority, and certainly if you're looking for what is going to fit objectively the best, you're probably better off saving $10 and going for the laced low-cut variation of the F50 League. But if these do happen to fit you properly, given that you have the chance to try them on in store, and you like the idea of the whole laceless system, don't necessarily need your boots to fit as tight as possible, then I think what they have here at this price point, like I said, is the best we've ever had on offer. $100 for a pair of football boots definitely isn't cheap, but if you've worn laceless takedown models from Adidas at this price point in the past and genuinely enjoyed them, I think you're gonna be blown away with how good these feel. Moving to the rear, the laceless version of the F50 League only comes available with a low-cut construction where you do have an internal plastic heel counter with this kind of mock heel counter, basically just the texturing and outline here on the outside to give it a little bit more of a look like the top end boot, but generally it's just more chunky at the back. Tons of extra padding, this really soft kind of microfiber lining material that feels good, but admittedly does look a little bit cheap. And then the insole, kind of again on the cheap side compared to what you can find from other boots at this price point, in that it's pretty much just a flat piece of foam rather than a 3D molded insole, relatively thin with a pretty standard liner on the surface. Not that it's bad, but certainly at this price tag, you can get better insoles from other brands. Moving to the base, instead of a sprint frame like you'll find on the Elite, you'll find what they're calling a sprint plate, which is a single layer of plastic as a sole plate with the three kind of ridges as stiffener bars running through the midfoot, and what is overall still a very flexible feel, maybe a little bit more so than what you're going to find from the top end model, but I think more importantly, when you're comparing this to past takedown model football boots from Adidas in that sub $100 category, it's not awkwardly stiff or honestly just bad in any way. Some of the sole plates that they've put out at this price point have been shocking over the years. These feel really good, not cheap in any way. And then as far as the stud pattern is concerned, they are labeling this as FGMG on the League variations rather than just straight up FG like they do on the Elites. MG, of course, standing for multi-ground, basically suggesting that this is safe to wear on artificial grass, which again also kind of plays into the silliness of the AG specific plate that you can get on the Elite model, that if they didn't tell you it was an AG plate, you'd probably just guess it was an alternate FG one. Nonetheless, the stud pattern is blades in the heel, some blades at the very front, and then kind of like these conical studs with a little bit of a sharp edge along the outside that ultimately kind of perform more like rounded studs in general, where the traction I would say is aggressive but not overly so compared to other FG stud patterns you're going to find from other brands. Certainly if you're comparing this to the Academy tier Mercurials, those also feature an MG stud pattern with some rounded studs, so pretty similar to those in terms of overall performance. And again, for the money, there's not much to complain about here. It gets the job done and feels pretty solid. And then there's the weight, which is easily going to be the biggest negative of the F50 League Laceless, certainly when you compare it to the top-end Elite model, which granted retails for $260. The weight difference is extremely noticeable. What exactly is the difference though? Let's find out using the scale, both in the same size, 9.5 US. We'll start off with the top-end Elite model, and you can see that they weigh in at a very lightweight 6.45 ounces, the equivalent of 183 grams. Remember those numbers, and we'll throw on the Laceless League variation, and you can see that they weigh in at 8.3 ounces, the equivalent of 235 grams. That's a weight difference of just over 50 grams, which is hugely significant and very noticeable when it comes to playing in the F50 League versus the F50 Elite. Laceless or not, if you're looking for a lightweight pair of speed boots on a budget, not to say that these are heavy, but certainly they don't offer that super light feel. feel. On feet, I don't know that I'm impressed because the F50 League Laceless just fits really well, or because they fit and feel so much better than some of the absolute garbage laceless $100 football boots Adidas have put out over the last several years. This is such a leap forward, it can't even be put into words. The shaping and general fit realistically isn't that far off the top end elite model. If anything, I think a lot of people would actually have a hard time telling the two apart, in that the shaping and tension provided by the laceless system is so similar. The major difference is going to be the heel area, which admittedly I do prefer the feel of on the top end elite model, but again, those cost $260, these cost $100. The one thing I will say about these, as well as pretty much any laceless boot for that matter, is pairing them up with a pair of grip socks is definitely a good idea, just to help to cut down on any additional movement or potential slippage inside of the boots, given that because of the laceless nature of the design, you just don't have any adjustability. What I will say though, I think the internal reinforcement of the laceless system is absolute genius. I'm surprised the top end model doesn't have it, in that it still allows the boot to stretch and bend with your foot, but it doesn't allow that top of the foot area to overstretch and make the boot feel like it's losing all of its tension and is generally just loose on your feet. The feel of the upper at this price point, especially in the speed category, I think is well above average. Yes, it has a bit of a plasticky feel, but it's nice and pliable and still quite thin, giving you that barefoot experience that you would expect from a pair of speed boots regardless of price point. The Soleplate underfoot is definitely a little bit chunkier, and like I said, the overall feel of the boot is heavier than what you're going to find from the top end models, but more or less something you kind of expect again from speed boots at these lower price points. And then as far as the overall width and shaping is concerned, if you have really wide feet, I would say laceless boots in general, probably not a good idea. New Balance does offer wide fit variations of their top end laceless model, so that might be worth considering. But for the average wide footer, probably not a great option. But again, if you've worn laceless boots in the past and you like the way that they felt, I think these should work for most people. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you are looking to get a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, and no pun intended, when it comes to laceless budget-friendly football boots, the F50 League Laceless is in a league of its own. Not that there are a ton of options in the laceless category at this price point, but even when compared to Adidas's own Predator League Laceless, there's a night and day difference. These are just significantly better. If you're on a budget and desperate to try a pair of laceless football boots, I would still recommend as a first option taking a look at what's available from previous generation top end options. Maybe you can get them at a discounted price that's low enough to fit in your budget. That's always going to be the best version of a laceless football boot compared to these. But if that's not an option for you, I definitely think for $100, a little bit less with a coupon code, it's definitely not a bad choice. At the same time, if you're just desperate for a pair of the new F50s and you're not really that bothered about having a pair of laceless boots, I personally think saving $10 and going for the laced variation of the F50 League for the vast majority is still going to be the best option.